Penn State's offense continued to struggle, but here's the good news. They can fix these issues.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State football, and as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Zach Seyko. I'm your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. He is Zane Brancefield, associate producer to the podcast. We are talking about Penn State's approach to Oregon and the concerns. What are the main points of focus that Penn State needs to look to going into? They have 2 weeks to prepare, right? But we're going to talk about the takeaways from this Villanova game as we stand here in Beaver Stadium. We got to begin with, Zane, what would we do if we're playing armchair quarterback, armchair offensive coordinator? How do you fix the issues within the offense? Because Penn State, I think, continues to downplay what's going on. And I'm not afraid to admit that I did too, that, hey, you know, FIU, okay, you have a sloppy game. But then it carries over into FCS Villanova, Zane. And now I'm just wondering, okay, Drew Allar is overthinking, it looks like at times. They continue to bring up missed assignments, communication, and things like that. That's very true. Guys are the offensive line, tight ends, combo blocks. Wide receivers, I don't think had the best day against Villanova, actually, either. Just some drops and things like that. So it's a collection of everything. It does start with a quarterback, though, I think, because I don't think this is a play calling thing. So Drew, at some points in time, I do think is guilty of overthinking the play, because we've seen what he can do when he's just kind of locked in and he can laser a throw like that through double coverage.
Yeah. I think you hit that nail on the head. I think he's just overthinking some things, and I think he's just not going through his reads correctly, whether it's too fast, too slow, whatever that may be. I think he's just overthinking it altogether and needs to slow the game down. And just like he said last week, he just needs to play like he does in practice. He makes the throws in practice, so he needs to do that in game.
I mean, it's different when we don't get to see, I guess, all the live action practice reps, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, but it's one thing to do it against air. Okay, because he can make the throws against air, and again, he can make those spectacular throws. The issue is the inconsistencies in between them. Against Nevada, I mean, I think Drew's biggest issue per se is really how much momentum he needs to get into rhythm. Mm-hmm. Is that he can be very easily thrown off of his rhythm, and I think that's something that, okay, then Andy Kotelnicki really has to emphasize that. How can we get Drew into rhythm as soon as possible? But then Drew also has to kind of put it on himself and say, because again, I don't think it's a play calling issue. I really don't think Andy Kotelnicki, it's offensive linemen just letting free rushers at Drew. And then that kind of affects Drew's psyche. So that's what I'm looking at here is, yeah, okay, he's doing it in practice. That's one thing. It's a low pressure situation. Again, we see the no action reps. But then in the game, it's just kind of those sloppy inconsistencies when you're a fourth-year veteran, you're a third-year starter. What are you doing?
Yeah. It definitely comes across that way, too, for the fans. I know they're like, well, he should be making these plays. And at the end of the day, too, like, he is a kid. He is still learning. But also, like, if you're going to be the quarterback for a national championship contending team, you do need to make those plays. Yeah. And I think Allar knows that. He actually didn't seem as hard on himself today, the post-game press conference stuff, but like there's things that need to happen for him to figure this out. Now, I asked him too about like the up-tempo stuff, and he said he prefers, and it helps him get in rhythm if they change it up, whether it's fast-paced sometimes or slowing it down in the run. That is what he said. That helps him get in rhythm. And so, like, I don't know what else Penn State is supposed to do, because they do that in the game. So it's just a matter of what is it going to take for him to actually click and allow that to happen.
I don't mind the tempo. I'm glad you brought it up. I don't mind it. I think if you can get a defense caught in a formation they don't want to be in, and then you do have, again, but Drew, it seems, is really reliant on that momentum, on that rhythm to get going. So if that's what it takes to get him to his best, great. But it also makes more of an uphill battle for Penn State's offense. I do want to point to something real quick. And again, we're going to talk about the defense and just overall takeaways from, defense continues to just impress here so far. But the pass catchers and Drew Allar don't have a lot of chemistry. Okay, this is the first time that they are playing in true games. Again, Kyron Hudson and Devontae Ross enrolled earlier because they were part of the winter transfer portal window. Trevor Peña gets here late in the cycle. There's also an element of that. And I don't know that most people are putting enough weight into what's going on here, is that you had Tyler Warren. Drew had Tyler Warren for what? 3 years, okay? And that was a guy, if I'm in any trouble, I know that Tyler Warren's going to be there, and I can trust Tyler Warren. Drew doesn't have that rapport, that chemistry with either of Trevor Peña, Kyron Hudson, or Devontae Ross because they haven't played a lot of football together. The passing game, I believe, will get better over the course of the season, but is it going to be good enough against Oregon, and is it going to be good enough against Ohio State? Because, okay, you're peaking in Week 11, Week 12, which would be great for the postseason, but you also have to get to the postseason too, and is 10-2 good enough? I'm not entirely sure there. That's a separate conversation. But Zane, that is something worth pointing out, is that Allar and the wide receivers aren't on the exact same page to this point.
No, they're not. But like, how much weight can you really put on that? Though is the other question, because
it's not going to show up in the box score too much. But he's missing those reads, and then the pass catchers are dropping some catchable balls.
But I also have to look at the other side too. What about the guys who have been here, like your Khalil Dinkins, your Nicholas Singletons, your Keyshawn Allens, who are also missing some of those?
There are options in the passing game too, but they're not wide receiver one, right? You know, no. Kyron Hudson's going to be wide receiver one. Trevor Peña is going to be wide receiver one. I'm saying about the consistency, the chemistry, the trust. That's not there to this point. And you have this big game coming up against Oregon. So that's something that, again, how do you fix the offense? As much reps as you can get between Allar and these veteran wide receivers. Luke Reynolds, you see how he kind of trusts Luke Reynolds the most, and
he does,
because he's had a year of football with Reynolds going into the season. Same thing with Khalil Dinkins, but I'm glad to see Reynolds stepping up. So that's another way to fix this offense. Now, limit the overthinking. You know, build, if Drew's comfortable with tempo, continue to do that. And then the pass catchers, just the ones that transferred in particular, I don't know what that necessarily takes, because you have a bye week now, but as many reps as you can to say, and I think Allar just has to kind of just say, you know what, I'm going to trust you. Whether it's instinctual or there's a thought process to it, I think he just has to sometimes he has to say, you know, I got Kyron Hudson in a one-on-one matchup. I'm going to take the chance anyway because he can make that catch in traffic. That's the thing, though. Peña and Hudson, we'll see about Devontae Ross. I don't think of him as really that catch in traffic receiver. Again, he's more of a speed, stretch the field type of player. But Kyron Hudson in particular, that's a guy that can catch a lot of contested passes. So at some point, you're going to have to say, Kyron Hudson's over there in one-on-one coverage. I trust him.
And just throw it up and hope he catches it.
It's not necessarily, I'm not saying, don't say that. Just throw it deep. That's not what that is, though. But if you have a 50-50 matchup, that's not blindly throw it into double, triple coverage. That's why I prefaced it. You have one-on-one, and you have Kyron Hudson. You have to trust your receiver to say, I know he's going to bring it down more often than not, or at least make a play on the football that isn't a turnover, instead of just these checkdowns, because we saw what happens. The checkdown to Kaytron Allen, right?
Yeah, and then the interception. But like you said, it's just essentially repetitions over and over again. But also, I think just it's a confidence thing in some capacity, I think, for Allar, too. Just figure out, like, do I trust myself to make this play? Like he said, I made it in practice. Well, there's something there that's not clicking in-game. So I think it's just a matter of time before that does happen. I think Penn State's right here, they're still going up the hill before that, that whole thing just clicks for them as a team. But they haven't shown it quite yet. There's flashes, but it's not complete. Like I say flashes, we've seen Devontae Ross catch plays in traffic. We've seen Trevor Peña make plays. We've seen a whole bunch of guys do things once or twice. So once they start getting in rhythm and it just clicks for the whole team and they're all in rhythm and they can build off each other, that'll be when Penn State is at their full capacity. I think there's flashes of that. I think it's going to take time, and what better time to do it now than our bye week before Oregon and hopefully show out then.
You got 2 weeks to do it. So still some things to talk about here, because I've said already in a live post game that it's a mix of everything. It's not just one thing. There's issues that Allar can fix. There's issues that the wide receivers and the pass catchers can fix. Offensive line in the ground game too. So we're going to talk about that next, what they need to fix, and continue with some other takeaways against Villanova. That's coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's episode is brought to you by the Game Cap. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it would be the game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage style that fans wore back in the 80s and the 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price that they did all the way back then. So when you use code Locked On, you will get your vintage hat for $16.99. And yes, they are available in Penn State theme. Head over to thegamecaps.com. That is thegamecaps.com. And you can grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use code Locked On for an exclusive discount. Again, there are Penn State hats available, so go check them out at thegamecaps.com because legends wear the game. And this episode is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy Caffeine. Just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins, nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. And you'll love that it's portable. That's probably the best feature of 5 Hour Energy. The big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. So more flavors, easy convenience to take it on the go, flavor of it, no crashes, best part of it. So you're going to get the taste, but also you don't have to worry about that crash later on. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get your favorites you love and be bold and try something new in store or online at 5hourenergy.com. That's 5hourenergy.com or over at Amazon today. Pick back up with the ground game, offensive line, because like I said, it's not just one problem. It's not just, oh, it's coaching. Oh, it's the quarterback. Oh, it's the pass catchers. Offensive line and the ground game. So Kadron Allen actually, I think, should be removed from this conversation because Allen has looked great with the explosive plays, great vision. That's what a lot of people are saying is that Kadron Allen has some of the best running back vision, and he does. Singleton is not a lost cause or anything. And I don't even think vision is kind of the biggest issue. There's something that people don't really critique enough, and it's something that I want to point out is just breaking tackles that are below the waist. Is that he actually doesn't break enough tackles that are around the ankles, and it's kind of easy if you hit Singleton low, he's going to go down more often than not. So that's what I would actually like to see. That's what I'd like Singleton to prioritize there. Outside, okay, most people are going to say vision. I say kind of just remaining upright with a low hit. But the offensive line in conjunction with this too, I think the run blocking is good. It's good enough. I really like these outside zone, these stretch plays, the counters, the jet sweeps, again, play calling, and then the run blocking is good. The pass catching, kind of hit or miss and what have you. And it's also those combo blocks. So which would you kind of point to as for you, is it Singleton or is it the offensive line that's kind of letting things down more so?
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly.
Okay.
But I think it's more so on the offensive line because if you watch when Kadron Allen has the ball, he's getting bigger holes. Now, like, granted, you can make your own holes at times as a running back, but sometimes it does help when your offensive line can create like a 3-foot wide gap for you to run through. And I feel like Singleton doesn't get as many of those. He got more today than what he did the previous 2 weeks, but still, overall, it seems like there's some miscommunications a little bit here and there with the offensive line, or just like a misassignment, or a blitzer coming in that they just don't see, or the defense just makes a really nice play. And I think,
at some point you got to say Villanova just read the play nicely, or had it schemed up from the defensive coordinator.
Absolutely, and I think that is somewhat of the thing, but also I think just the offensive line needs to create more holes when needed. Now, overall, they're not a bad unit. It's just certain circumstances. They're supposed to be up
for the Joe Moore Award. I would hope they're not bad.
But just certain circumstances and certain like play calls, it seems like that Nicky has called, just puts them, I think, in some like positions that are a little tougher for them to kind of bounce back or create those gaps, especially for Singleton. But like I said, a little bit too is on him. He's got to be able to read some of those plays and not get caught on a shoestring right at the line of scrimmage.
And it is complex. I think I see a lot of these different blocking schemes that Kotelnicki has in these offensive plays is where a guard will pull on a pass play, and instead of just kind of creating a pocket where everybody just kind of gets into a drop step and kicks back and creates this pocket, you will see significant movement where somebody pulls over, or they'll slide the line and things like that, or a blocker will pass off. They have to ID the right guy, and a blitzer, for example, just goes right through the gap, and it's whose man is that? So that's where that communication. What do these communication issues look like? They look like when you have a free blitzer, a stand-up blitzer, a linebacker screaming through, and the guard's going to pass him off to the running back, and the running back's not looking in the A gap, and that's how Drew gets a free rusher right at him. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Or on the outside, the tight end and the tackle in the ground game. If they're running a combo block together, if it's Nolan Rucci and Dinkins, or Nolan Rucci and Reynolds, or I guess I should have said like a Shelton and a Raplier, for example, it could be any of them. But then they have to communicate where they're going to double the end, and then one's got to peel off. Who's peeling off? You have to know that in the moment. Whose guy is that? And it's so precise. It's not a one-size-fits-all puzzle piece where the tackle is going here. It depends where the player is on the assignment. So it's these subtle nuances that, again, won't show up in a box score. You really got to comb through the film to see it. But that's what's happening in these instances.
Another thing, too, we talked about like having a blitzer come in. Sometimes that left tackle, Kotelnicki, will have him pull, and then you got a blitzer coming in, and if the tight end or the other Wildcat running back doesn't pick him up, then like the same thing. Either the running back doesn't have a gap to run, or Allar's getting pressure, and it creates a mess. Like you said, you don't see it, but it's something people need to watch for. And like when you're watching the game, trying to figure out what Penn State's like struggling with, it's not just where's the ball going to, or who's running the ball, or who's blocking. It's what are these motions and these movements that are coming through that you're not seeing, that are just creating little kind of mental mistakes for the players, or creating like mental pressure. Like maybe Allar sees out his peripheral vision, there's a blitzer coming. Well, just that little half-second thought of that can change how he looks through his reads.
Yeah.
And like that goes with a lot of things, running backs too, and offensive line. But like there's a lot of different things that are more than just like the X's and O's of the game that fans are watching.
Let's talk about more of the positives. So other takeaways from this game. I mean, Penn State's starters, once again, in a sense, pitched a shutout. They've only allowed 3 points to this point in the season. Now, again, Nevada, FIU, Villanova, which is why this offense should look so much better. Again, Indiana goes out and absolutely decimates Indiana State, and Penn State kind of the in-state FBS, FCS game, and it just wasn't this total comprehensive victory, especially on the offensive side. But the defense, Jim Knowles, that's why you bring in a guy like Jim Knowles. It just seems like everybody's in the right place at the right time. Guys are flying around. Should also point out, Zane, that no health concerns coming out of these games. There aren't players, oh, he's shaken up, he's leaving the game early. What's the depth chart going to look like? I think that's what Penn State should just kind of celebrate at this point, is there's no major injuries that haven't occurred since the preseason, and that can affect your team. But the defense, there's so many things that with Chaz Coleman continues to impress. I thought the linebackers looked phenomenal today. The dynamic duo of Amare Campbell and Tony Rojas. Tony Rojas had multiple sacks. Amare Campbell is really good in run blitz schemes and attacking the line of scrimmage. Those guys in a 4-2-5, and that shouldn't mean to overlook Dom DeLuca, but this dynamic duo of Tony Rojas and Amare Campbell, they seem like the best of friends when we were getting to chat with them in training camp or leading up into the preseason and media day and everything. But then on the football field, you can actually see the chemistry between the two when they're out there in that 4-2-5.
Yeah, like when one does one thing, whether blitzing or coverage, the other one picks it up. And
yeah.
I think not enough people are talking about Amare Campbell. He has been incredible for Penn State, because you take away Amare Campbell after losing like Kobe King last year, I don't know who that Mike linebacker was even supposed to be.
Maybe Tony Rojas.
But you bring in Amare Campbell, a guy who's had, I think, like 16 tackles up to this point in the season. We're 3 games in. That's incredible. And
yeah, in a limited snap count, right? Because he's not playing late in the game.
Absolutely. And the fact that he's been able to stuff the block and play pass coverage too has been great for Penn State. And you mentioned too, Tony Rojas, and like He's been great. And Dom DeLuca, too, also had a QB hurry today. I think Penn State very easily could have one of the best linebacker rooms in the country, especially across those three. And just overall, the defense, like you said, has been incredible. 6 points across this whole game, and then only, 3 against Florida International. This Penn State...
And the reserves are allowing those touchdowns. Yeah. I know, and everyone wants to spread the total, right? I get it. But when you look at the 1s and 2s, the starters, they are doing their job, and that is one of the keys going into Oregon. So we'll continue with that. The defense, Chaz Coleman stepping up, but kind of starting to piece the blueprint together of how's this going to look? If Penn State's going to beat Oregon, make this a seriously competitive game, what do they need to do? It's going to be on the defense from what we've seen so far. We're going to talk about that more coming up here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football-backed Prize Picks is the simplest and the fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. Do you think Josh Allen is going to have more or less than 270 passing yards? Do you think Saquon Barkley is going to have over 1 rushing touchdown, or do you think he's going to be held under that? The best part, even if one of your picks misses, Prize Picks invented the flex play, so you can still double your money even with one incorrect pick. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you will get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel makes every game more exciting. Whether you're watching your favorite team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup, it's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little bit of energy to your Sundays, also your Saturdays. With college football, you can make bets on Penn State football, or if you're focusing on the NFL, the Steelers, the Eagles, right? You can use, and if you're new to FanDuel, you have those bonus bets, you can use them all across the website or the app. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. In the home stretch here on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions here in the home stadium, Beaver Stadium here. Zane, the defense, again, holding up its end of the bargain. The offense, I do believe it will get better. Again, it is concerning because against the likes of Villanova, against FIU, against Nevada, it just, with all the continuity, with everything that they brought back, again, year 2 of Andy Kotelnicki, you think it would be better in that you would have some of these things could be explained if they were going on with the defense. Hey, Jim Knowles' system is really complicated, those things like that, but they picked it up so well, right? And it's great to see guys like Chaz Coleman emerging and just continues to make plays and get after the quarterback and these moves that are so seamless. So when you think of what's going on with Oregon here, Penn State's defense until the offense, because again, I think the offense is they're not going to fix everything in 2 weeks. Wow, that's great if they do. But that's why I start to put the responsibility and when your defense, they have to play complementary football, and sometimes you just have to pick up the additional slack. So when Oregon's going to come in here with a high-flying offense, they can score at will, they want to get into track meets, the defense, the extra pressure is going to be on them, especially if the offense just isn't at the level of consistency that they want to and need to be at here. Again, so having them for the most part, very healthy. Denai Sutton, Zane Duran, Alonzo Ford, Zariah Fisher was playing again today against Villanova. You have Chaz Coleman now in the mix. Xavier Gilliam at defensive tackle. Ty Blanding getting really good reps. Owen Wafel saw an increase in playing time today against Villanova. Linebackers, Tony Rojas, Amare Campbell, and then the defensive backfield. I don't think they were tested as much as they've been all season long. Again, competition isn't the best on the offensive side for Nevada, FIU, and Villanova here. So the defensive backs will definitely be tested, but they're in good hands when you have A.J. Harris, Elliott Washington, Davian Collins, and safety seems to be a revolving door a little bit. King Mack kind of overtaking at the strong safety spot from what it looks like. Zachy Wheatley's out there. But I like that they have options, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if someone's not doing their job, you can easily rotate somebody else in to see if it'll pick up the slack. So it's going to be on the defense to have one of their best performances, create turnovers, create short fields, and just keep Oregon, Penn State's offense out of rhythm, keep Oregon's offense out of rhythm.
I think the big thing, too, like, Penn State fans want to worry about, like, Penn State not scoring a lot of points. Historically, though, Penn State has usually been a defensive school altogether for the fact that, like, here it is again. Penn State's defense is locking in.
Especially recently.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to continue to be the trend this year. And so, forget what the offense, like, their struggles are. Like, you work through it. They still scored 52 points. Also, some of that was a pick six from JahmirJoseph. But altogether, Penn State just has a defense that knows where to be, and they enjoy playing. I think that goes a long way, especially.
I would hope so, yeah. But I get your point.
Like, at the beginning of the season, they all said, we're excited to play in Jim Knowles' defense. I get to do fun things in this defense. And we're seeing that play out week in and week out. Like, JahmirJoseph, true freshman, had a pick six today. People want to talk about Darius Dixon. Well, JahmirJoseph, too, has been right up in those conversations, according to James Franklin. And, like you said about, too, the defensive line, the defense, like the edge rushers, the defensive tackles, we've mentioned the linebackers. Altogether, Penn State has these complementary pieces that allow them to succeed in ways, and depth too. And like you mentioned health, but depth too goes a long way, because even if a guy isn't hurt, you still want to be able to trust your next guy. If a guy gets tired or just late in the game, you need a different look. And Penn State, or James Franklin also said that was a big reason today they moved to King Mack starting over Antoine Belgrave Shorter. They wanted to move faster, and they wanted to be more explosive on the defensive side of the ball. And I would say they did that well, and they're going to continue to build off of that. And King Mack, like, he came back to Penn State after being Alabama. He wanted to be a starter, but he had to earn that spot again after Antoine Belgrave Shorter was starting the first couple games. He's going to continue to get his role increased, and the rest of the Penn State, like, defense altogether. And there's guys, too, that aren't even filling the box score yet, and the stat sheet. Like, A.J. Harris hasn't been doing a lot of, like, getting a lot of tackles or pass breakups, but we know what he can do.
They won't throw at him.
Yeah.
You can't get in the box score. They don't throw at you.
And you just get those coverage things, too, that aren't going to show up unless you look at, like, advanced stats. And so I think Penn State's in a really good spot defensively. Jim knows what he's doing. And frankly, too, he makes adjustments in-game, which people have had problems with in past years about not making adjustments in-game. Jim Knowles does that. He sees the offense starting to do things. Also, yes, the defense probably would have given up that field goal early in the game, too, that was called back then. But overall, you have to be happy with what the Penn State defense is doing. They're creating good position for the offense, whether it's like short field, getting interceptions, getting fumbles we've seen throughout the season, and just overall, everything has been looking really good. And the Jim Knowles hire is looking really good for Penn State, Pat Kraft, and James Franklin.
I mean, it should, because he's the best defensive coordinator in the entire country, and the results are immediately showing up. But they have not truly been tested, right? Again, these offensive groups are not juggernauts, and you get right into Big Ten Conference play for Penn State. You get Oregon. Now, Jim Knowles somewhat solved that a season ago in the postseason, right? With that, yeah. And Jim Knowles last postseason solved the formula now and he's not going up against Dylan Gabriel this time, even though I think Dante Moore is phenomenal. So Penn State's defense gonna have to pick up a little more of the slack. The offense, again, I don't like the idea of a track meet with Oregon. Maybe later on in the season, again, as the veteran pass catchers get a little more situated with Drew and they just continue to build chemistry in that Big Ten championship game in a hypothetical, or maybe you meet in the college football playoff, you get a rematch with them. That's when you get, but right now, you got to be physical. You got to make it a rock fight. Defense has to find ways to, force Dante Moore into turnovers, uncomfortable situations. It helps that this crowd is going to be maybe one of the biggest in Penn State history, maybe the biggest in Penn State history. So Penn State has that going for them. The offense, it's going to be on the ground game. It's going to be on those 10, 12, 15 play drives if you want to avoid getting into a race with Oregon. That's my point, is if the tempo and everything, that just maybe table that for another time, because Oregon wants that. That's what they want to do. And then it takes the crowd out of it. If they're able to get out by a score or 2 scores, that kind of thing. So that's why I'm saying defense, turnovers, and the offense, just long, lengthy drives to just keep Oregon's offense out of rhythm.
Yeah, also give your defense a break too. But
yes,
I think the biggest thing there too, like Penn State is going to learn from these first few games. They have a bye week, but it is here in Beaver Stadium. The crowd should be loud, and that definitely will help Penn State to an extent. But I think overall, it's just defensive game. I think Penn State all season is going to be a defensive team, but also last year the offense looked a little shaky. Went into the Big Ten championship game with receivers not as talented as this year's group, and they still had a shootout there. And obviously, yes, Tyler Warren, we understand how good he was, but Penn State now has 3 new weapons versus just 1, and also Luke Reynolds is emerging as that kind of like next Tyler Warren type of player. So it could be another shootout. Maybe when the lights get brighter, Drew Allar gets new life, and the offense decides to become a spark plug and an absolute juggernaut. We'll have to wait and see, but the defense has looked good. Yes, lower competition, but you still need to execute, and the defense has done just that.
I think the hope is that maybe Penn State is saving some of those plays, or is kind of working on something behind the scenes that they have ready for Oregon. That, again, you don't need to throw the kitchen sink at Nevada. Do I have to say it all over again? Again, this non-conference schedule, you don't need to do everything and then some just to get a win here, okay? But again, the performances, particularly on offense, have not been that inspiring. So you have 2 weeks to prepare for Oregon. That's kind of the light at the end of the tunnel here, is that you have all this time to prepare for one of the biggest games on the schedule. That's going to do it for this edition. Locked On Nittany Lions. He is Zane Brancefield, associate producer to the show. My name is Zach Seyko, your host as always. Thank you so much. If you're an everyday, or if you're not one, become one. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast. Let us know your takeaways, your thoughts down in the comments section. And for more Penn State football content around your favorite Penn State sports teams, keep it right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.